Hello. Welcome to Let's Make a Profit podcast. I'm Rebecca Howell, your host, and then I'm also joined with my co-host, Roger Sargent.
Hello there.
Which is, he has a small business, Affluence Business Solutions. And then we're also welcoming back Paul Long with Timberland Bank. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
How are you?
I am great.
Good.
It's a wonderful day.
Yes, we're going to try to get through some more of this ever-changing situation with the SBA and the PPP funds.
Woohoo!
Oh, yes. So today we're going to be talking about PPP forgiveness applications and other funding options available to businesses that are still needing assistance during this COVID period. So last time we talked, you had mentioned that the SBA had received approximately about 96,000 applications and had only started processing 2% of those. Yep. Do you currently have any status update on those? And are they receiving more and are they processing more?
Well, I don't have an update on how much they've received, but what we do know is that they are processing, and we thank God for that.
Good.
So what's interesting is what we found is they're processing the smaller ones first, and the larger ones are taking a while. So I have a feeling from what I've heard is they have a small team of people that are doing over 2 million because they're gonna get looked at a lot bigger.
Right.
And then the smaller ones are being ran by mass production. So, at Timberland, we've submitted a handful, and we have about a half of those back already.
Oh, good.
So that's great to hear that we have that they're moving along.
So you've been processing and they have been receiving forgiveness.
Yeah. So
approval on forgiveness.
And what's interesting is, again, because you learn throughout this process, is that the bank, all we get on our system is approved, forgiven. That's all we get. We don't get a letter. There's nothing I can provide to the customer that says you're forgiven. It doesn't, there's nothing. Okay. So we're hoping, and I sure hope someone would reach out to me someday and tell me what they actually get in the mail that says it's forgiven.
Right.
But we're waiting for something from SBA, a little more official than the bank saying something. And we don't have that answer yet. So my phone number's right there. Feel free to call me because I'm curious on what you're getting on forgiveness.
So go ahead, Roger.
I'm sorry. So Paul, what's a small amount when you're talking about the smaller amounts first?
Sure. So, like, for example, I think it was like 100,000 and 150. Those were getting through. 1 million, 2 million, 4 million, 5 million is still being sat on the system.
Gotcha.
So
Got it.
we kind of have across the board.
Okay. Well, and we did have a big announcement last week about the under $50,000 or less.
Yeah. So if under 50,000, there's a new we'll call it 1.5 page form. Now people think, I just fill out the form and send it in and I'm all done. No, it isn't that cool, but it's close.
And we still have to do all the documents that are still necessary for the other applications. There's still.
Sorry, business owners, you still have work to do. But chances are, though, you probably used it all on payroll. So it's probably really easy to do a payroll report and call it good. And that's what I'm recommending to anybody and everybody is that make sure that if you use it all on payroll, only give us that. I don't care about your rent. I don't care about your utilities unless you have to have that in order to get full forgiveness. It just puts a cog in the system. So let's just stick with payroll since the new 24-week rule came out.
Great.
Perfect. Okay. So question 2 on this is, what advice are you giving applicants before submitting their forgiveness applications?
Good luck. No.
Okay.
No, I mean, it is ever changing. And so, the under 50, if you have under 50,000 right now, you should be talking to your bank, filling out the form, getting your paperwork ready. Don't wait. let's just get it done.
Okay.
I know a lot of people that just want to get it done by the end of the year. So it's just done for this year. You don't have to worry about carrying over and all the stuff that you have to worry about when taxes and all that stuff. So that's the ideal situation. So if you are under 50,000, reach out to your bank and get moving on it. Is definitely what I would recommend.
What kind of turnaround time are you seeing on some of those earlier applications?
It was about like a week.
Oh, that's not
Wow.
bad. That's pretty good.
That's the fastest I've ever seen the government. So that's pretty impressive.
Well, and kind of a follow-up conversation when they said that you just said that they just received approved and forgiven.
Yeah.
It's really the bank that needs the information because the bank kind of lend out the money to begin with, right? So the people, I mean, yes, the people probably care, but really it's the bank that wants to get their money back.
Right. And once it's forgiven, et cetera, I mean, a little bit, behind the curtain a little bit, we get money from the government to pay off that loan. Now, maybe that's the letter that they get saying, hey, your loan's paid off, the government paid it off, you're all done. I don't know, but I would think that the SBA would come out with something a little bit more official.
Okay. Roger, are you getting anything from your bank?
Well, after our last conversation here a couple weeks ago, I reached out to my bank and they said that they haven't received anything formally yet from their higher ups. And so 2 days later, I received saying we haven't received anything from our higher ups yet. So please be waiting and be ready. So really my advice to like my clients and everybody is that have all your documents ready. So when the application is handed to you, you have everything right there to fill out and send all in together, like as you just said, Paul.
Yeah. And, even if a lot of banks are using portals where you'd go online, you type in all the information, it'll print it out, DocuSign, et cetera. And bigger banks will definitely do that. So just, but again, do the exercise, have the form filled out. So when you're filling out the questions, it's just boom, 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 and you're done, and submit it through. But every bank is going to be different, guys. Bigger the bank, it's like steering a ship compared to a fishing boat. It's different. Give it some time. We understand you want to get it forgiven. It's a process. Sorry.
Yep.
Well, and last week, Roger and I were talking about Parkinson's law and how people, if they're given, 8 weeks to do something, they'll take the full 8 weeks. If they're given 10 months to do something, they're going to take the whole 10 months. So really, I think this conversation is you're starting to say, hey, let's get started let's get these things done a little bit sooner. And obviously if their forgiveness applications or their funds are less, then it's probably going to be a simpler process than everybody's kind of thinking that it should be.
Exactly. And
okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. So Roger, you talked to amongst a lot of business owners, and how are they feeling about this procedure and submitting the applications?
Well, I think that most of them should bank at Timberland because you've got at least your application available. Like myself and a lot of others, they haven't received the application yet to even start filling out. And so, is there just a generic application that someone could just go get? Or
there is. I was just going to say that if you go to treasury.gov, it's the fastest, easiest site to go to. Treasury.gov. At the very top, there's a big red bar that says COVID-19 PPP. You click on that. You will see all of the information that we have as banks, as well as every little form. That's where we check as banks to make sure that we have the most updated form. So treasury.gov and click on the red banner up on top.
And that will give the same 1.5 page application.
Yep.
Okay.
It'll give you the full one. If you're over the 50,000, it'll give you how to fill it out. It'll give you everything.
Perfect.
But we also still need to be clear that they still have to go through the bank that they receive their funds through. They can't go through SBA.gov to get the forgiveness.
No, and I know people have tried to do that. And
I wanted to clarify that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So are you having any talks around your circles of obviously your banking contacts, your colleagues, about any additional PPP funding?
Yeah, there's so many bills that kind of go in and out of Congress that I kind of started to stop listening because
it gets a little overwhelming.
It just gets you excited for nothing or not excited, either way. There is talk about a second round of PPP that is common. How that's going to look, I think honestly is going to be more of a disaster than round one. You're probably going to have to go back to your same bank. How's that going to work? Are you going to have two separate PPP loans? How's that going to work? There's a lot that's going to be coming out on this. And so, when you hear congressmen and senators talking, they do want to do another round of PPP, and banks are going to do it, of course, because we want to help small business out there. However, it's not just going to turn right on as soon as the president signs that bill, because it's going to be an interesting process, just like it was the first time.
So, I mean, basically, if people are relying on that, they don't want to necessarily put the cart in front of the horse. So my question to you is, if clients are still needing assistance, what other options are available for these clients to survive through this COVID period?
So I think what's absolutely critical is, again, you have a relationship with your banker, because there are programs out there that a bank can help with. There's programs out there that your county and state can help with. There's a lot of programs out there, people. If you Google, small business funds, you'll be on Google for a while. But to truly answer your question, there are still taking applications for the EIDL loan up to $150,000.
Okay.
That is pretty darn critical. That is the number one loan I would recommend to people out there, because it's 30 years at 3.75%. That's insane. You should absolutely do that if you need the money, but that is still available. If you're needing larger dollar amounts, the Treasury did come out with their bigger Main Street loan program. That's very complicated, and I'm not getting into it. But that is another route for there. There are the normal SBA loan programs that can help. It depends kind of your situation. If you are a restaurant and your revenues are down 50%, I would probably be recommending an EIDL loan. SBA loans are going to be a little bit tough. Check with your county. Every county has CARES Act money, and every county is doing something different with it, which is interesting. For Pierce County, I know they have a CARES loan relief program that's out there. Google it. I don't have any information here with me right now, but it is out there, and they're accepting applications. So that's another opportunity. And so, again, if people want to find out what other options are out there, give me a call. I have a pretty large list that I reference of different avenues to go to. And, just let me help you along the way, and in any way that I can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that information.
Yeah.
Roger, your clients, you work with your clients, and you're probably a little bit more familiar with some of the grants that are available within the counties or the state of Washington. The governor, I know, came up with something.
Yeah, so as Paul alluded to here, the governor, after that debate, came up with this $15 million, small business package, but there's so many darn restrictions to it. It doesn't apply to everybody. And quite honestly, I don't know who really, who it applies to when you look at all the fine line. And then, you talk about Pierce County, they had a loan specifically to help pay for the expenses that you had to incur to make your business COVID friendly. Yeah. Okay. Then there was then there was another one that was going to help just with the rent. So if you were paying rent, they had set aside certain funds to just help with the rent. So you really got to be careful. So that list that you're talking about, you got to look at them very carefully, because, everybody got excited about when Governor Inslee said about the $15 million, but quite honestly, I don't know who it really applies to. So I don't know who's going to be able to get any of that money or not.
And 15 million is a drop in the pond, guys.
Yeah.
How many businesses are in Washington State?
Yeah.
Divide that by how many businesses, and that's not a big number at all. Here's your quarter.
Not going to go very far.
No, it's really not. But what I'd recommend doing is, obviously talk to your bank, but obviously as a secondary choice too, reach out to your county's economic development office and see what they have. Then they can guide you to those programs because they'll keep up with that a lot better than frankly I can or banks.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. It's hard to keep up with all of it, but I think everybody's situation is different. You have to look at each individual client and really customize a plan to what do they need and what funds are available for their needs.
Correct.
But at least we know that there is some EIDL still available and possibly maybe another round of PPP. But we'll keep going forward with the forgiveness applications and hope that that process is smoother than the rest of it. So
Paul, if a business applied and received EIDL idle money back in May, would they be eligible for another round now?
So the EIDL loan, it's a one-time shot. You can't get more than that.
All right.
Okay. One thing I'm going to go back on that I totally missed, and I'm sorry about that. On your forgiveness, if you got the EIDL grant, what's the EIDL grant? That was that up to $10,000 that magically appeared in your checking account and you had no idea where it came from.
Well,
you applied for it.
$1,000 per person because too many people applied for it, so they had to break that 10,000 down.
Correct.
Here's your quarter.
Yeah, exactly. But what's important to know is when you do your forgiveness. So if you got $5,000 for your 5 employees, your PPP forgiveness will be deducted by $5,000 the forgiveness.
So will that mean that you will have to pay back the $5,000 of the PPP?
If you spend it, yes.
Oh, okay.
So that is going to be critical. If you got the grant and a PPP loan, the grant will be deducted from your PPP forgiveness, and you will have to either pay the loan off or you make the payments over, I think it was the 2 years.
Wow. Okay.
So that's going to be that's going to be a toughie for some small businesses.
Yeah, that is. But then also too, we're going to be doing a follow-up podcast about the tax ramifications and things that how it's going to affect the tax returns. So
yeah.
So do you think that was well communicated to the small business owners?
No.
No. Not at all.
Really, when we talk about the tax ramifications next week, that's going to be vital because I know a lot of businesses that got both of those.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And yeah, I've talked to a lot of customers, and they've again, when we were doing the PPP, I was kind of reminding them, hey, did you get one of those grants? Yeah, I did. Save it. Because you're gonna have to pay for it. You can't double dip in the cookie jar.
And right now, because of it's 7 months going on 8 months with this, they've already spent it.
Oh, of course they have.
They've had to. Yep.
I mean, let's call it what it is.
Well, and instead of doing maybe a second round of PPP, we should work on those grants and letting those be forgiven, because originally those were grants and they were 100% forgiven. Now they're going back on that.
It's just the double dipping is just what they're trying to avoid on there. Yeah.
Well, then they shouldn't have given out the PPP funds if they knew they gave out the grants, but we can't talk to each other. So one system did not communicate with the other. So
exactly.
We'll just, it is what it is, and we'll have to deal with all those things when they happen. But
that's right. Well said.
So with that being said, is there any additional information that you want to share with people?
Definitely, again, I go back to relationships. You got to have a good relationship with your banker. You got to have a good relationship with your accountant or CPA. You have to, especially in times like this. Every bank has a newsletter. Every accountant I know has a newsletter. And I hope that they're actually writing about this, but are you as the consumer reading it? Because that's going to be really important as you're going through that. So making sure you have those relationships and making sure to see what you need to know before you start applying for the forgiveness, just like you mentioned with the tax implementations on that. Yeah. So that's going to be critical. If you're under 50,000, apply for forgiveness. Get it done. You will thank me by getting it done in the year 2020. Nobody wants to see 2020 continue into 2021 in anything in your life. So let's get rid of anything that's 2020. Let's get it forgiven, move on, and start 2021 fresh.
Got it.
Yes.
How about you, Roger?
No, I just appreciate that Paul
I do,
clarified
yeah.
the EIDL grant money versus the PPP because that was not well spoken about and clarified with when these guys applied for both of those.
I know.
Yeah.
And just having the people to ask, having the person to ask the questions. And if you're not getting the answers, then, this isn't a conversation you have with your neighbor or your other small business owners. This is a conversation you have with your banker or your accountant, because they have the answers to help you through this process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And definitely,
I do want to add one more thing, just kind of a little thing at the end. One thing I've been getting a lot of requests for is, I need a line of credit for my business. I need a line of credit for my business. And obviously with times the way they are, I don't blame them for wanting that. What's important for you to realize though is, again, there's no forgiveness on a line of credit as we're talking about PPP, but keep in mind that lines of credit are really made for short-term purchases, and you're made for that temporary cash flow infusion to your business, and then you're going to immediately pay it off. If you can't pay off a line of credit within 12 months, it's really a long-term debt and should be a loan. So it's really critical that, okay, I got a line of credit, woohoo, I'm just going to rack it up to 50,000 or whatever the dollar amount you get. And then at the end of that, the bank could be coming and knocking at the door and saying, hey, you need to start making principal payments, and you're going to have your eyes wide open and not have the cash flow to do it. So just keep that in mind, because I've been getting a lot of calls with that, because people want that emergency fund. And I don't blame you. Everyone should have an emergency fund, whether it's cash or a line of credit, preferably cash, but not everyone's blessed like that. So again, have a line of credit in order to have that.
And then just make sure that you're not, not asking for any more than you need, because
and trust me, the
people
bank's not
ask
going to give you more than you need.
Well, and they ask for more because they think they can, and then they think, oh, well, this will make me comfortable. Well, then they go and spend it, and then they realize they can't. They don't have the funds to pay it back. So.
And people think that they're an awesome business if they have $1 million line of credit or whatever the case is.
Until that line of credit gets called.
Exactly. It's, a bank will look and make sure that you can qualify for what it is. But again, you should also know how much you really need at the end of the day. So that's a good point, Rebecca.
Good. Thank you. Roger, anything else?
No, this has been great.
Perfect.
And Paul, thank you for clarifying that,
You bet.
all those issues.
Thank you, Paul, for joining us today.
You bet. My pleasure.
It was nice to see you again.
And,
Thank you.
and thank you for making PPP funding very fun.
Yeah, we did have
Yes.
some fun with this one today, didn't
Good.
we? Thank you, Paul.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.